ciel bleu vole en silence, les cœurs des gens amoureux.
Hey everyone, so for today's video, I wanted to do a good old comparison video. So a lot of you may already know that I am a huge fan of the Shiseido Synchro Skin Self-Refreshing Foundation. I mentioned this in my Best of Beauty for 2020. This is again, another holy grail find of this year, which is the Shiseido Synchro Skin Self-Refreshing Foundation. I used it in countless tutorials. I'm just a very big fan of it. But what do you know? Shiseido has actually come out with a radiant version of the same formula. So they recently released the Shiseido Skin Radiant Lifting Foundation. I think they already did have some sort of radiant lifting foundation in the past. I'm not sure if these formulas are different or the same, but in today's video, I'm going to be doing a really in-depth look at both of these formulas and give you an idea of which formula might work better for you depending on your preferences. I'm actually wearing both foundations on my skin today, one on each side, so feel free to guess down below and let me know which one you think is on which side of my face. So anyway, let's get into the comparison, the demos, everything like that. If you guys do enjoy the video, definitely make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and I would love to have you back if you like me. So make sure to subscribe as well. I think the best place to start is to talk about the original, the Synchro Skin Self-Refreshing Foundation. Comes in 30 different shades. It retails for $47 and you get a full fluid ounce of product. It's described as a weightless foundation with active force technology that synchronizes with the skin and self-refreshes non-stop for 24 hours for a just applied look in a flawless finish. As I mentioned before, this is certainly a holy grail product for me, and it is for a lot of the reasons that Shiseido mentions. It really just has everything that I look for in a foundation. Number one, and something that I think is actually really difficult to find in some foundations, is that it wears very consistently no matter what condition your skin is in. As a whole, I think a lot of our skin is going through it. In a more stressful time, our skin can kind of go back and forth from being oily to really dry. Sometimes you have more clogged pores, sometimes you don't. Especially with more stressful times, I feel like our skin really sees the brunt of it. Something really nice about this is that it really just rolls with the punches. It always looks good. This is a very creamy foundation. It's more of a medium coverage, I would call it. They do say that it's medium to full coverage, and I think that you certainly could build it up to full coverage, but I don't really see the need to. It's definitely more of a creamy kind of skin-like finish, and that's not a foundation finish that I see often. There are some more creamy kind of airbrush foundations that look really smooth, but somehow overall they tend to look a little bit heavier just because of the formulas. They have that creaminess, but you can kind of see the creaminess on the skin. This does a really beautiful job of kind of blurring the skin while still looking like skin and giving coverage. Really a lot to love for that reason. I love that the product and the foundation is just very balanced. There's really an elegance to the formulation because with a lot of more long wear foundation products, they feel and look as if they're kind of cemented on the skin. And that's really the route that I think a lot of brands take with their more long wear foundations. They make them so kind of long wear and long lasting that it really, you can tell on the skin, it really looks like it's sticking to the skin, and that's just not something that I like. I like for my skin to look as natural as possible. Shiseido actually took a different route, and I think it's just so innovative because instead of working against your skin, kind of making the skin unmovable to make it long wear, they went the other route and made the foundation work with your skin. Honestly, I'd never thought about that before going that route with a long wear foundation. It kind of goes against everything that we are taught about makeup, that makeup is going to last better when you take away moisture, when you really make sure that it's pressed well into the skin with a powder so that the product doesn't move around. This moves with your skin to make it more long wearing. For that reason, I just see so many people falling in love with the foundation. I actually introduced this to my mom recently and it looks gorgeous, just so gorgeous on her. As you continue to wear it, it moves with your skin. It's not going to control shine, but it's not going to break up on the skin awkwardly. It really is just such a beautiful foundation for that reason. And it's definitely my favorite longwear foundation that I've ever used. I just see so many people with so many different skin types really enjoying the foundation. And that's another reason why I always go back to this recommendation. So you can obviously tell that I'm a very big fan of the original Synchro Skin. So that meant that I had high expectations for this. I was really expecting a lot from the formula and I wanted to see something really elevated. The price is exactly the same, and honestly the packaging is nearly the same as well, except this is a frosted bottle and this is clear. So that is nice in your makeup drawer to be able to differentiate the two. They call it a lightweight hydrating liquid foundation with medium to full coverage that uses light adjusting technology to visibly lift, refine, and smooth. Same 30 shades. And I did want to mention I have the shade 140 in each of these, and I will throw up swatches so you guys can get a better idea. I do think that the 140 in the Radiant is just a touch more yellow, but it's not really something that I notice once it's applied to the skin. In fact, if you guys guessed that this is the Radiant side, then you are right. And then this is the original formula over here. The texture is actually slightly thinner, but still feels a little bit more emollient. Very interesting when I put them both out on the back of my hand to compare the textures. Somehow the actual texture of the original is thicker, but still more lightweight. Very interesting. Whereas this has a little bit more emollients, and obviously that emollients translates to a little bit more of a radiant look on the skin. But both don't feel heavy on the skin at all, which is definitely another reason why I really enjoy the foundation. So the Radiant Lifting Synchro Skin goes on to the skin very beautifully. It gives you that immediate medium coverage. It's very easy to apply the way that the Synchro Skin is. You don't have to sit there and build up any coverage. I like that they were able to find that balance with this formulation. A lot of dewier foundations tend to be a little bit less coverage. I think that maintaining that medium coverage into this formula was the right way to go, especially with a dewier foundation. If you keep building it up, it can start to look heavy. So I think that was the right way to go. But when you see this on the skin, it really doesn't look super dewy. I love the restraint that the formulation has because it gives you that kind of lit from within glowy look that doesn't look too dewy, and it doesn't look really oily. It just looks like you have that natural glow, that there is just that natural shine on the tops of the cheekbones, which makes it really nice because on the other areas of your face that you don't want too much shine, it's not going to look overly dewy in those areas. So I don't feel the need to powder this at all. I do have dry skin though, so maybe if you were on the more combination side, you would feel the need to powder. But honestly guys, I'm not a powder fan. I don't like the way that a lot of powder looks on my skin. So yeah, I just love that this gives you that really radiant and glowy look that doesn't look unnaturally radiant or unnaturally dewy. I love that it's also still relatively lightweight, and it does still have that touch of kind of a smoothing effect on the skin, which is certainly more difficult to find in a more dewy or glowy foundation. But let's talk about the main differences between the two products so that you guys can get a better idea of which is probably going to work better for you. So we did already talk about the texture and how the Radiant Lifting does have a little bit more of a liquidy and emollient texture, and really they need that in order to achieve that kind of glowier look, whereas the Synchro Skin is a little bit more of a creamy kind of foundation texture, and that translates when you have the product on your skin. You can see with the Radiant that you just have that soft glow that happens on the tops of your cheekbones. And in general, it just looks fresh and dewy, but not overly dewy. But because of that light, I do think when you compare them side to side, I think this side is slightly more blurred. It's a little bit more smooth. And that I think is just because of the finishes of the foundation. When you're reflecting back more light, it's easier to see more pores, but I still notice the smoothing effect of the Radiant foundation. But when I see them side by side, if I'm really looking up close, that's that's what I noticed. And as for the actual wear time of both of these are long wear foundations in my opinion, but the original is going to last a little bit longer, again, because of the actual texture and the finish of the foundation. When you lean more on the creamy skin-like side, you can kind of wear into the foundation, if that makes sense. Like your skin can warm up the foundation and maybe give it a little bit more glow as the day goes on, whereas this already has a little bit of a glow, so it will tend to look a little bit more dewy as you continue to wear it. But funny enough, I feel like the way they wear is incredibly similar. They both do the thing where they kind of refresh as you continue to wear them. It's not going to start to look crackly. It's not going to look heavy or more cakey. If you do have fine lines or wrinkles, you'll probably notice that the Radiant will settle in those a little bit faster, but really not by much. I think if you deal with general dullness of your skin and you want a long wear foundation that's going to look really fresh and hydrated, but not overly dewy, I think that the Radiant is probably the way to go, because this just has such a nice kind of healthy looking radiance that's very balanced, and I really like the foundation for that reason. Whereas if you deal with more textural issues, let's say you deal with more pores, I would say that the Shiseido Synchro Skin, the original, is probably the better way to go, because this one is slightly more blurring and it's also just a touch more long wearing. Do you need both? I think that really just depends on what you're looking for. You could certainly have the Radiant and then just use a little bit of powder wherever you need it. Probably a very similar look to the original, or vice versa. You could buy the original and then just use a really glowy primer when you want to. I think both formulations are beautiful, and I see both formulations working for a variety of skin types. I always loved the Shiseido Synchro Skin because I felt like it was such a nice foundation, especially for those of you with combination skin. But being that I have dry skin, I feel like when my skin is looking a little bit more dull, I'm going to probably be reaching for the Radiant. Especially recently, I just feel like I need a little bit more shine, a little bit more glow. So yeah, I hope that this review has been helpful for you guys. Please let me know if you guys have any other questions about these. I'm happy to help. Make sure to subscribe before you go if you did enjoy it, and I will see you in my next one.